Welcome back to the Bold Moves podcast. This is episode number 7, and I am very excited about where we are at. I'm just going to assume that it's even more than dozens of people now that are watching. I don't know what the next level of counting is.
For sure.
20s, 30s,
maybe
40s. I have no idea.
At some point that joke's going to have to end anyway. So
it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we just got to get to the point where there's hundreds. How about that? And maybe we're at hundreds. How about that? Thousands, maybe? Millions. We'll never know. We'll never know.
Okay.
Less zeros.
Less zeros, but still people. And we're glad that you're here with us today. So we've been talking about this idea of how I lead my family toward Jesus. And that is actually a significant question that we have to grapple with at some time as we get older. We start taking more responsibility. We start having kids. Suddenly, those kinds of questions start having a lot more meaning and significance in our lives. How do I lead my family toward Jesus?
Yeah.
That's not easy. We have the Bible to guide us, but we don't have like instruction manuals like, oh, in this situation, do point A. Like it would be so great if there was a manual that just walked us through every phase of life. Yes. But kids are difficult. Every situation is different. They're all wired differently. Like it gets crazy.
Right.
And what I love about our situation specifically, we all kind of have kids in slightly different phases of life. So it's kind of funny to think about those different phases. Corey, you've got the littles. I mean, tell us a little bit about that. How has life changed for you the last 3 years?
Well,
and what's good? What's a little bit of a struggle? Yeah.
So our oldest is 3 years old. She turned 3 just a couple months ago. And what's funny is that was all happening. Like she was born as I was making a transition here at Crossroads to take on a little bit more responsibility and ownership. And so I was learning like a new job and learning to be a dad all at the same time.
That's a lot. That gets heavy.
It is a lot. And to be honest with you, I did not nail that from the beginning at all.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the things I had to learn right away was I actually need to be really intentional about my time at home.
Yes.
I have to put my work stuff away.
Yep.
And turn the computer off, turn my phone off.
Being present.
Yeah.
Yep. That matters.
Yeah. And so like my wife very much reminded me that I needed to do that. Not only for our daughter, but for her. So,
our spouses will help us in that regard. Help us focus. Yep. Dana has done that for me. Yep.
For sure. So learning to be a dad has been awesome. I mean, I feel like in a lot of ways, a lot of my life leading up to that was me getting ready and being prepared for that. But it's you learn it on the job. And the biggest thing I can say is that I love my girls to death.
Yes.
Both of them. And I would do anything for them.
Yeah.
And kind of having that realization that there's somebody that is so dependent on me, especially at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing they do is dependent on me. As much as my 3-year-old wants to be a little bit more independent, it's dependent on her parents.
Yes.
And it's an interesting position to be in, but also like we want her to continue to grow and to become more independent and to grow up in her relationship with Jesus. And so it's been fun to watch that, but
one of the things that I grapple with in that situation is the reality when you hold your child for the first time. And I think that's an amazing, incredible, there's nothing like that in life. Holding your child for the first time. It's that realization though that God has entrusted a soul to your care. It's like, oh my goodness. Like
big moment.
This is heavy. There's a lot to grasp there and a lot to grapple with. Kristen, what's that look like for you? Because your kids are kind of the next stage up right now and in the middle of that.
Yeah, I think I was just telling a friend, I think I've changed a diaper every single day for the last 6.5 years.
Yeah.
So
when does that end? Is there an end in sight, you think? What's that look like?
I hope so. Maybe this summer. Let's push for it. My youngest is on the side of where maybe he could start to potty train.
There you go.
So
he's 6. He's 6.
Oh, my word. No.
That one has got it down, but we'll see.
That's fun.
Yeah, so we're coming out of the potty training phase with my older two. We're coming out of that and into the school years. And like I've said before, like I used to teach and I loved all of that teaching. And I thought, I'll just teach my own kids. Like, this will be great.
Sure.
My son brought home one thing of e-learning, and I sat down to do e-learning with him, and I was like, nope, Not going to be your teacher. Your teacher can be your teacher.
E-learning is the worst. Yes. Oh, it is the worst. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed, like, as my kids are getting older, allowing these people to play a role in their lives. And I just get to be their mom. And I love that role with them.
It's so good. So my boys have definitely entered all the way into the teen years. They're 16 and 14 now. And it's a completely different dynamic. Like one of my favorite memories of Jake that I love to tell, honestly, to his complete displeasure, is the fact that one of my favorite memories with him looking back is when he was like 2 or 3 years old. It's the middle of the night. They don't feel good. You've gotten those conversations.
Oh, boy.
I just remember I was in the kitchen with him. I had sat him on the counter in front of me, and he's just kind of whining. And he don't know what's real. You don't know, like, you just want to stay up later tonight. What's going? He's like, Dad, I don't feel good. And just in the middle of a sentence, just projectiles all over me. All I remember is, like, at the last second, I just put my head up. Lost my headphones in that moment. Put my head up, and I'm covered with vomit. I'm like, no, this was never discussed when it came to being a parent. Yes. Like, what just happened here? Like, it's the worst. And so you have moments like that, and then you have moments of just unbelievable joy and fulfillment when something clicks. You celebrate a great moment in their life, and the highs and the lows and the chaos and just navigating all these different situations that you have never been trained for. It's like, okay, in the middle of all that, how do I be the best parent that I can be? How do I lead them toward Jesus? And I've been more impressed than ever in recent years that, man, we've got to surround our kids with other people who love Jesus, who will set an example for them, who will pour into them and speak life into them. And care about them. Yeah. And I consider that the whole idea of just stacking the deck for success for your kids. And not having the pressure of having to figure out on my own, inviting other people to speak life into them and having other voices speak into that. Does that resonate with you guys at all? Does that play into your kids at all? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, so, like, my girls both go to Crossroads Preschool.
Yeah.
And the teachers there are fantastic, honestly, and they do such great work with our girls. They are around Jesus following people.
Yeah.
And our families are both we grew up in the faith, and our families are all active in following Jesus. So that's really helpful, honestly. Because we know, like, we can let somebody watch our girls, like one of our family members watch our girls, and there's nothing really to be concerned about. Yep. So, like, that's incredibly helpful.
It's really nice. Yeah.
So a couple months ago, my oldest son, he accepted Jesus into his life.
That's awesome.
It was a good moment. It was one of those things that it took a little while that we were praying for. Like, he expressed that he was having all these questions, and then, but like, I prayed for him. We had other people praying for him, but he was at church, and those teachers were just pouring into him, and finally, he came to us and he said, I'm ready to pray and accept Jesus. So, like, those other influential voices really played a part with him.
I think also, like, as our kids get older, what I've noticed is it's not only just being involved with friends and youth group, that's a great tie in the relationships there, but having the youth leaders, the youth volunteers, our youth pastor. I hate to give Anthony too much credit because it goes straight to his head, but they have such a huge impact and influence on our kids' lives. And in addition to that, Corey, this is really, like, amazing how this comes full circle. Yeah. My oldest has started serving in the tech world, and you're helping him serve and use his gifts.
I'm sure that's awesome for you as a dad
it's amazing.
Like, give him the nudge to say, hey, it's time to start serving and be part of what we're doing here at our church. And he does he's our best camera operator. And I'm not joking.
Will not tell him that either, because that'll go straight to his head. That's good to know, though. I do ask him sometimes, so how'd the camera work go today? And he says, well, I zoned out a couple times during your preaching. Like, okay, that's fair enough. He's going to be honest about that. He says, like, I drift sometimes. Like, okay, gotcha. So if we notice that, I lost him.
Yeah, it is a long day. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what else to say.
Your sermons get a little bit long.
He's going to be the best critic. He gets to listen to it multiple times in those situations. That's so funny.
Kristen, just what you were saying about, like, it happened at church, being part of kids ministry on Sunday morning. Like, that's important. Send your kids to
big.
I get it. Like, if you first come into a church and you have no idea what's going on, I understand, like, wanting to keep your kids close, but for real, our kids ministry is specifically designed for exactly the age that they're at.
Yeah.
To be able to connect with Jesus.
Yes, it's intentional.
Which is what we're doing in our adult services. And we just want to make sure that everybody has that opportunity. And so
that's so important. And we can't underestimate the value of surrounding ourselves with other people who are trying our best to follow Jesus and who have the same values and same mission in life. The stat is, from 0 to 18, you have 936 Sundays, to put your kids in church and to have them experience. And that sounds like a lot. Like, hey, that's a lot of Sundays.
Yeah.
And yet, if you fall into the trend of like, well, we go once every 3 or 4 weeks, well, suddenly you only have 250 Sundays. And then they're gone in the blink of an eye. Yeah. And I think the more intentional we are about stacking the deck for success, surrounding our kids, our families, with other people who can be a great model for them and speak life into them, I think that's a win. And I'm probably a little bit partial because I'm a pastor, but man, church is a great setting to stack the deck for success for your kids,
for sure,
and to help you lead them toward Jesus. Yeah. It matters. So the other piece of that I love is that there are also, friends in life, people in life who've taken this like to heart and have made this a life work because they see there are kids who are desperate for hope. There are kids who are in difficult family situations and are trying to navigate it on their own, because we live in a culture where there's a lot of people who are just desperate for hope. And one of the people who's leading the charge for that in our community is Seth Maust at 5 Star Life. And he has a ton of wisdom and a ton of great principles that help us navigate this whole area of parenting and give us wisdom and principles that we can put into place in our lives and help us be better parents. So I would love to welcome Seth Maust to the Bold Moves podcast for 5 good minutes. Let's give it up for Seth Maust. Hey, Seth Maust has joined us from 5 Star Life. And Seth, it is so good to have you with us on the Bold Moves podcast. Thank you for taking the time to join us, my man.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
I love what you guys are doing. And just so that everybody's on the same page, can you just give us a little bit of an overview and maybe even talk about how it started and where it is right now? Because we've been talking about bold moves. That's what this podcast is all about. I feel like, Seth, you and your family probably made a bold move at some point to start this process and make the impact that you're having. So I would love to hear that story and what it looks like right now, man. What's been happening? Talk to us about it.
Oh man, there's so much happening, but I love the name of your podcast, Bold Moves. And
it is pretty good. Honestly, that speaks to your high level of intellect. I thank you for that, Seth. That was very good.
We're at that same high level. I really feel it's an honor that you consider me at that level.
Thank you for that.
but all joking aside, I mean, so many people live in fear.
Yeah.
And fear just keeps us pinned down. And I remember, 20 years ago, I began to feel this discontent. I was a youth pastor. I was a high school basketball coach. I was living the dream. I loved what I was doing.
Sure.
But I was about 6 years into it. And everywhere I'd go, outside of my little circle that I was reaching, my little community, which was amazing, I would just ask the question, like, who's reaching that kid on the street? Who's reaching that group of kids? And do these kids have any clue how much God loves them, how valuable they are, and the talents that God has given them, the destiny God has for them? And that discontent began to grow to the point where I felt like I was supposed to take 6 months to a year just to dream and to pray and to fast, and that God was going to download, what the next, I knew my skill sets were, I knew my talents were.
Sure.
God, use me. What does the next 50, 60 look like? And it was in that window where I met some like-minded people. We formed 5 Star, and we really formed 5 Star Life because of this data in the research process. We learned this, and this is crazy because most people have never heard this, but 7,000 kids were dropping out of high school every single school day.
Wow.
Let's not breeze through that. That's an incredible number.
Yeah.
7,000 students a day.
Yeah.
And you're right, Seth, nobody talks about that, right? Like nobody wants to brag about that. Okay, so that's the need. That's the need that you're stepping into.
Yeah, and by the way, they've since about 5 years ago, 3 to 5 years ago, I can't remember the date, but the DOE changed. That data is no longer on their dashboard, so you can't find that information anymore.
Fantastic. Okay, good. Yeah.
So it's interesting how you can't see what the actual number is anymore.
That's tough to wrap your mind around. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what we're dealing with.
That's surprising, like, because the government's usually so transparent, so it's shocking.
That's
Every
funny.
once in a while they have a miss. I guess that's just a miss.
We'll just leave that right there.
That's hilarious.
Anyways, here's the visual. You put a kid in a school desk, and then you line up kids in school desks, and then you start stacking kids in school desks. And you keep on stacking until you reach the height and the width of the Empire State Building.
Oh, my.
Now do it 12 times. That's a visual of 7,000 kids every day.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, that's just staggering. So that's the need, and that was what God had placed on your heart. I mean, talk us through those steps. I mean, what was the first move that you made? And talk us through that, because that's wild. That's a great adventure.
I'm a total geek. So I'm a researcher. I'm a learner. I'm a questioner. Like I'm learning from everybody I meet. And so the first thing we did, we began to just talk to and interview parents and teachers and business leaders and politicians. Any stakeholder, we interviewed them and asked them, do you know that 7,000 kids dropping out? And what's the root cause? And politicians, they blame the educators. The parents, they blame the teachers. The teachers blame the parents. Business leaders just said, give me 5 minutes, I'll fix this. So you had all these different perspectives, and there's no resolution at all.
No
and
ownership of that. Yeah.
Right.
We found some research out of Stanford that totally lined up with just common sense and even biblical truth. Solomon said, as a man thinketh, so is he. And there was research out of California that was saying, out of Stanford, saying, at the core of a person's success or failure is this operating system that we refer to as a mindset. It determines how you look at yourself in the mirror, determines how you see the person on your left and on your right.
Yep.
Size, your vision, your work ethic, everything comes down to that operating system. And so we said, okay, to move the needle, we're going to build every program, everything we do around this idea of addressing the core issues of a kid's life, their mindset.
Yeah,
sure. That's a powerful statement and a powerful principle to be operating off of. So let me ask you this then. What have been the main principles that have guided you throughout the process and over the years at 5 Star Life that have helped change those perceptions of themselves and their operating systems? I mean, what does that look like? Because you guys are doing an amazing job helping so many students these days. What are you guys focusing on? What are the main principles that help these kids turn that corner?
So all of our programs, our curriculum is based on 5 core values, which is just respect, treating others the way you want to be treated.
Yep.
We have a whole series on you can't give what you don't possess. So if you don't respect yourself, it's really hard to give respect to other people.
Oh, that's powerful. Yep.
Responsibility, just taking ownership of our past choices, our current reality, and our future dreams.
Yes. That's
not being
powerful.
a victim. Integrity, which we define as who you are when nobody's looking, the real you.
Yeah.
That's good.
And then courage, which we define as having the strength to do what's right rather than what's popular or comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah.
That resonates.
Kids have never been more they've never been more under attack than this time in history, but they've also never been more comfortable. It's a weird dichotomy. It's very strange.
It's a weird dynamic. It is.
So and then sacrifice, which we define as giving up something now to do something better later, like giving up something now for something better later on, or to serve somebody else, being a servant leader.
Yeah.
Those are 5 things that we build our curriculum around.
That's powerful. And I tell you, you can see the change that it's making. Listen, I go ahead and brag. How many students a week are you guys impacting through 5 Star Life? What's that look like right now?
This year it's about 27,000 kids a week.
27,000 kids a week that are being impacted by what you're doing. And that's making a difference, man. That ripples out. Let me ask you this question, Seth, because we've been talking about parenting. We've been talking about the family circus of life. There's drama, there's chaos, there's joy. It's kind of all muddled together. And yet in the middle of all the chaos, as parents, we can struggle. I can speak from firsthand experience. Having the answers and knowing what to do at any given moment is so difficult. It's different for every kid.
Yeah.
But I feel like there are some principles that we can all learn from and implement that make a difference. And I think I'm becoming more and more convinced now than ever that we don't have, as parents, this responsibility on our own. We can surround ourselves with other people who can speak life into our kids. And I I'm pretty sure you agree with that sentiment, Seth. What does that look like in your mind to have other people, mentors, people that are great examples that you can look up to, having them in a position where they're speaking life into your kids? Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of that and what you've learned along the way?
Yeah, it's so important, and it's weird because parents, as a parent, there can be so much insecurity because our kids don't come with a manual.
Right.
But yet,
wouldn't that be nice?
especially in the Christian world, there's this pressure to raise perfect kids.
Sure.
And if I'm a good Christian, I should know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there's this interesting dynamic of can I really be open about my struggles as a parent, and can we walk through this together, or do I have to act like I have it all figured out because I'm the leader of my household?
Right.
And so I just always tell parents, like, man, that number one, it's so important that you know how kids work, and the number one thing that every human on the planet knows and needs, and every kid especially, is to be loved and accepted.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So like I just tell parents, like, at a core, there's so many books, so many resources. You guys are pumping out resources.
Sure.
But I always kind of dumb it down and simplify it this way, just saying, you're either going to parent out of from a foundation, from a place of love, or from a foundation, a place of fear.
Well, that's good. Mm-hmm. That's good. And that matters.
Yeah.
It kind of simplifies it because, every reaction, and this is what kids tell me too, like, my parents are screaming, my parents don't understand, my parents are this, my parents are that.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, they love you, but they're letting fear, they're rooted in fear right now. It's fear responses. That's why there's such a clash and a disconnect.
Yes.
If
That's
they could
good.
just have a conversation, and parents could just relax and just say, okay, how would love handle this right now?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
That changes
You
the
need to
whole
have a
perspective.
conversation. Doesn't mean you shy away from tough conversation. But
Yes.
am I reacting out of love because I'm afraid of the decisions they're making? I see where the train is going, so I'm so freaked out. I'm just like, we need to talk, and I'm just pounding them.
Yes.
Or is it, man, I love you so much, like, I'm just concerned. Can we have a conversation about this? They're no longer 7 years old where you can grab them by the neck and have a conversation.
Right. Right.
It's
and
different.
that perspective that makes such a huge difference. I think that is a real word of wisdom. That matters. I've fallen into that trap. I'll just be honest. As a parent, there's times when I get terrified. You see your kids making some choices or developing habits, like and you operate from that place of fear, and it does. It matters. It's a different tone, and operating from love and saying, all right, let's talk about it. It matters. That approach matters. That's wise, Seth.
Yeah.
That's a good word.
The other thing I tell parents is, God gives parents, as the head of the home, He wants to give you a revelation for your kids. I'm not saying He's going to download you the whole plan for their life, but he gives you a vision for their talents, for what they can do, and it's a good vision. Like, you see great things for your kids, and it's so important as a parent that you see your kids through the lens that God's vision has given you, the little snippet you can see for your kids.
Yes.
They're the best version of who they are. It's so important that you keep that vision in the forefront, even when they're making terrible decisions,
that's really good.
Because they're learning. They're learning. They have to learn.
Yes.
But as soon as our kids see that we've lost belief in them, and we now only see them as the last mistake they've made, kids can recognize people that believe in them and lost belief.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And that
powerful.
really kills your relationship.
Yeah. So leading from a place of love, believing in them, revealing the vision for their life that God gives you, keeping that front and center, that matters.
Yeah.
That's a good word, Seth. I honestly, Seth, I got to be real with you. Like, hearing you talk, I think that there's a chance for 5-star life. I think you guys could do something here. I think this has a future. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So-
You got that gift of encouragement. I love that.
There it is. So can we have some fun here before we go? You guys, how long has 5-star life been? Did you say 19 years?
19 years.
Wow.
19 years you guys have been doing this. Go back all the way to the beginning. Are there some like original players that you would think of that, man, we really have built what we have here today on the shoulders of just some volunteers from the very beginning who or maybe at a local elementary school and came and helped and volunteered their time. Anybody that comes to mind?
Who would that be?
Who would that be?
Yes. Her name is Kristen. She's
Kristen!
Kristen!
It's you!
Kristen. She is OG 5-star.
OG 5-star!
Yes.
I love that.
OG for sure.
Lots of lives were changed.
If you survived Kristen at the beginning, there's nothing that will stop you.
She was literally one of the first probably 5 volunteers.
Come on.
That's so true.
For sure.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
I love
That's
that.
awesome.
I love it.
Good old days.
Seth, to be able to see like where it started and where it is, man, I love what is happening. I love how God is using you, man. Keep at it.
For sure.
We're cheering you on. And thanks for coming on Bold Moves. It's been great to have you.
Thanks for having me. Good luck with the podcast. It looks beautiful. You guys are rock stars. It's fun.
Thank you, Seth. Have a great day. Thank you, man. That is great content from our friend Seth Maust. I love that guy. I love what he's doing.
He's great.
I can't believe the impact that he is having.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, that he's able to have that impact when he started with Kristen as one of his OGs. That is wild. To overcome that kind of obstacle.
I helped him get there.
Kristen officially claims full credit for the success of
Gotta set the
5-Star Life.
foundation.
Yeah, there it is. I have to say that the one thing that sticks out for me from our conversation with him is that idea of parenting from a place of fear versus parenting from a place of love.
Yeah.
I thought that was a powerful concept because, man, when you parent from a place of fear, when you do anything from a place of fear, it's never going to have the same results. It's the wrong perspective to have. God doesn't want us to operate in that place of fear. And that's hard because in our culture, there's so much coming at our kids that's just counter to who we know they can be and the plan that God has for their lives, that we've got to trust God with that, and we've got to coach them through that from a position of love. Do you guys have anything to add to that or anything that stuck out to you from that conversation?
Yeah, even like, so like our 3-year-old, I would use her as an example.
Sure.
She likes to be as independent as she can be. And that means sometimes like running around a parking lot, for example, which, well, honestly, we have probably a little bit of fear as parents.
Sure.
Some car's going to come along, not pay any attention and just like knock right into her and cause a problem.
Yes.
We don't want that to happen, obviously. But it's not only is it, sure, we fear that like, scenario, but like it's out of our love for her. We want her to grow up to understand. We're trying to teach her the understanding of what dangerous means. Yeah. Because this is a world that's filled with dangerous things. Yeah. And so even from a young age, I want her to know, and that's out of my love for her. Right. It's because I want her to grow and to thrive as she grows up and becomes a young woman, honestly. And so it's got to start somewhere. And that's where it starts for us.
Yeah, that's good.
I would say my son is starting to ask all of the questions, the whys.
Yes.
Like, well, there's rules here. Why?
Yes.
Why, Mom? Why, Dad? And
yes.
So that kind of challenges us. Like, why are we saying this? Is it out of fear or is it out of love?
And those are great questions that clarify, like not only where am I parenting from, that position of fear or love, but man, the why. It clarifies what's important to us, why it's, I mean, those are great questions and they're terrifying because we're expected to have all the right answers, right? And I think that what it comes down to in parenting, I think it comes down to that idea that we're supposed to have all the answers and based on our ability to be a good parent. I think a lot of times God doesn't really look for ability in us. He looks for availability. Like, here I am. I'm willing to lead. Give me wisdom. And in a lot of cases as parents, God, please give me a ton of wisdom because I need it right now. And I think that if we're staying close to Jesus, if we're trying to listen to his voice, listen, we dedicate our children to God. We have to trust God with the souls of our children. We trust him with our lives. And so we've got to live from that position of love, serving him with everything we have, chasing after him and trusting that he's going to guide our steps and direct our paths. And so I think when we talk about leading our families toward Jesus, man, it's trusting him and serving him out of a position of love rather than fear. I think that goes a long ways.
That's good.
This has been good stuff. This has been a lot of great content, and it was great having Seth on. What a great 5 good minutes, which is really probably more closer to 10 good minutes, but it was amazing.
It was great.
If we need to change the title of the segment, so be it. It's several good minutes. But however you slice it, the idea is here, we can do this. If you're kind of feeling overwhelmed, like what's my next step? Listen, keep going at it. Don't operate from a place of fear. Operate from a place of love, and do your best to follow Jesus and lead your family toward him. You can do it. God's with you. You got this. So, hey, until next time, when it's time to make your move, make it a bold one. We'll see you next time.